Greetings, I am nothing, nobody, a resident of the Phantom Line channel, and you can call me Felinoid. On Facebook, I posted 2 psychological elements that I believe accurately describe social justice warrior behavior, and somebody presented a third that is basically SJW 101. So I said, this needs to be a video, and so I was nominated. I tried to get a hold of somebody that I felt could do this better, but because he could do this better, he's also in high demand and not available. So, it's up to me. The Master Suppression Techniques is a framework articulated in 1945 by a Norwegian psychologist and philosopher whose name I cannot pronounce. These techniques are identified as ways to indirectly suppress and humiliate opponents. So, let's get into this. Making invisible, to silence or otherwise marginalize persons in opposition by ignoring them. Black Lives Matter, saying it's racist to talk about white people getting killed by cops, ignoring the fact that this issue came to light with the murder of a homeless white man. See, Black Lives Matter makes like all lives matter is derailing the issue, when in reality Black Lives Matter is derailing the issue, presenting it as a race issue, when it's just an abuse of power issue, and that is what All Lives Matter is doing, is bringing it back to focus of what it really is, instead of the Black Lives Matter derailing it into this manufactured victim complex. Feminist claiming the men's rights movement does nothing for men's rights, saying if not for feminism, men's issues would never be addressed, ignoring the fact that it's the men's rights movement that brought those issues to light while feminists deny those issues existed. Also, feminist organizations actively oppose any effort by men's rights groups to address men's issues. Basically, when a men's rights group tries to get funding for a battered men's shelter, there's a protest because it's sexist somehow to send money to a battered men's shelter. So the men's rights groups try to put together a battered men's shelter on their own. Oh, that's sexist too, because somehow that's acknowledging that men are being battered. This is somehow sexist and anti-women. Then when an egalitarian feminist group that already has a battered women's shelter find out from men's rights groups that men are being battered too, they add to their existing program to help men, and then the feminists who've been shutting down the men's rights groups are saying, well, see, we don't need men's rights groups to do this. Feminists do this. The only reason feminists are doing this is because men's rights groups came to them for help. And they did that because the men's rights groups get shut down if they try to do it on their own by these feminists. Yeah. So they're basically making the men's rights groups invisible. Ridicule, in a manipulative way to portray the arguments of or the opponents themselves in a ridiculing fashion. Editing audio from a live stream so it sounds like Bering said rape is okay, something he didn't actually say. The men's rights movement is a hate group. No evidence, just claiming it so that people won't support it. Gamergate is about pushing women out of gaming. No evidence, just claiming it so people will stand against Gamergate and what it really is, and won't check into it to find out what they're really about. Referring to any geek thing as a white male safe space. This is a double whammy. First, it's presenting white men as a bad thing and forcing geeks to have to explain how there used to be a lot of women in geek spaces and they disappeared. Oh, by the way, spoiler, it's the social justice warriors. They drove women out of geek spaces so that they could claim that there's sexism in geek spaces. What a setup. And still, like, more than half of geekdom is in Japan. Not white. Over half of the geeks are not white. Ugh. Describing geeks as violent. Geeks get bullied because they are non-violent. And then describing them as violent and getting people to think they're violent just gives, bullies a greater opportunity, because then the geek attacked me, so I'm just defending myself, which is bullshit. Withhold information. To exclude a person from the decision-making process or knowingly not forwarding information so as to make the person less able to make an informed choice. When talking about the wage gap, ignore the fact that women, on average, are taking lower-paying jobs. It has been illegal to pay women and men differently for decades. Women's rights groups can sue anyone who is paying men and women differently. You know why they're not doing that? Because there's nobody to sue. You can't sue somebody if they're not actually paying men and women differently for the same job. So, yeah. The wage gap is due to women not earning as much as men. All right. They're being paid the same for the same jobs. They're just not taking the same jobs. Ending every discussion by blocking the opponent and declaring victory. Basically, they haven't won the argument. They just make a grandstanding bullshit claim that is huge bullshit, easily debunked. They know it's easily debunked, and they just block you so you can't respond. It's, I win! Claim to want a dialogue while blocking everyone. That's self-explanatory. Claim somebody backed out of a debate when there was no debate planned. Pretty self-explanatory. I could go into it, but yeah, happens a lot. Double bind. To punish or otherwise belittle the actions of a person regardless of how they act. The no-win scenario. When men's rights groups attempt to address men's issues, SJWs get it shut down, then claim the men's rights movement never does anything. Yeah, what did I've addressed this already, so I don't need to go over it again. But it fits in a double bind, too. Claim anti-SJWs never deal with harassment. Then claim any effort to deal with harassment is harassment. Gamergate was accused of harassing the opponents of Gamergate. So a group in Gamergate went around and found people who were harassing others and got them shut down. It turned out the vast majority of the people who were actually doing the harassment were anti-Gamergate. Even when they were harassing other anti-Gamergaters, they were still anti-Gamergate. So they were like, oh, well, you're still harassing us because you're getting all of our accounts shut down. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Heap blame, put to shame. to embarrass somebody or insinuate that they are themselves to blame for their position. Claim the men's rights movement never does anything while shutting down every attempt to get things done. I already addressed this ad nauseum, so it comes up again. Drive women out of gaming, then blame the gamers. Yeah, there used to be a lot of women in the in software development, and they disappeared as the social justice warriors started infiltrating, and so that they could say, well, see, gaming, software is, the game development industry and software industry are sexist. Yeah, and there's actually indications of social justice warriors bragging about driving women out of gaming. Yeah. Victim mentality. Now this is something I brought to the table. All right. Victim mentality. Let's go over here. Yeah, is an acquired, learned personality trait in which a person tends to regard themselves as a victim of the negative actions of others, or to behave as if this were the case even in the lack of clear evidence of such circumstance. Basically, like Black Lives Matter claiming that cops are targeting blacks when there's clear evidence that it's not the case. Claiming that Gamergate, and the gaming industry are driving women out when the SJWs had to drive women out to stage the argument in the first place. Oh, and the fact that there's now more than half of the gamers are women. So this whole thing of so basically it would have to be the women doing it, because like, how is this possible since half the gamers are female, right? It doesn't work. Manufactured victim complex. Okay. So basically, I'm the victim here when it's clearly not the case, but you gotta help the fake victim. My Patreon. Stockholm Syndrome. Pretty much the flip of that. The people who are not the victims, who are in the position of being the male feminists, is basically a psychological phenomenon described in 1973, in which hostages express empathy and sympathy and have positive feelings toward their captors. Basically, the people who are abusing them, they start being sympathetic to the people who are abusing them. And in this case, feminists, men are bad, and start abusing them, and Stockholm Syndrome comes about. So that, so my two contributions is Stockholm Syndrome and the victim complex, and somebody else contributed the master suppression techniques, which is really the whole enchilada on its own, honestly. But yeah, this kind of explains why these, where this comes from. That why are people acting in cross purpose to their benefit is Stockholm Syndrome. Why are and why are why are people crying? Victimhood, well, it's just the victim mentality. There it is.